they may comprehend better than you what I have delivered to you. Just take it to them exactly as I gave it to you. So, we here in America, we were the last to hear al-Islam. We were the last here in the West. And as I said, it didn't come to us in an easy way. But it came to us, and it came to someone that was dedicated to helping, lifting our lives, improving our lives here in America. And Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as the story goes, Sister Clara brought him out to hear Mr. Fard, or Professor Fard, as he was called, different names, teach. And he converted overnight. And you know, speaking of Sister Clara, you know, the Imam connected her name Clara with clairvoyance. You know, a clairvoyant can kind of see things more than the average person. And he connected Clara with clairvoyance. So she was the one that directed her husband to hear Mr. Fard. And he, from that, ended up being what was called then the Supreme Minister. And this happened in Detroit, Michigan, when this took place. And you know, the Imam, speaking of Detroit, he was born in Detroit in 1933. I think his month was October, right? But if you think about it, it takes 9 months for a child to be born. So Imam Warathy Muhammad must have been conceived in February, the same month we're in. Because 9 months later, you got October, right? So it was in February he was conceived. You understand? In his mother's womb. 9 months later he was born, 33. So there's so much wisdom when we look at every aspect of the uniqueness of our history. It's very unique. Another thing, the Imam say, it was no accident that he was born on Yemen Street. The Imam was born on Yemen Street, the right hand. He said that wasn't no accident either. And I'm thankful he gave me the name Yemani. Very thankful. And so our history is rich. Sometimes it's kind of mysterious. But see, these are the workings of Allah. And never will we all understand the workings of Allah, His mysteries. Only Allah knows everything. That's why we are the faithful believers. So our history here in America, going back to Islam rising here in this country, us being brought over here from Africa for labor as slaves and being brought to America. See, this was a transference. See, Islam was being transferred from the east to the west. Because in the slave ships, those slaves, many of them were Muslims that were brought here. And they had within their tormented bodies the seeds of al-Islam that was later going to blossom here in America. And they did blossom. And you see the Moorish Science Temple of America, Noble Joe Ali. You even see Marcus Garvey, Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And if you have heard or read about Dr. Eric C. Lincoln in his book, The Black Muslims in America, etc. And anyway, he wrote about this here, that Islamic gene being in all of them. Although they came from there, they all for some reason, when they heard the name of Allah and Muhammad, they responded to it. Noble Jew Ali responded to it. Honorable Elijah Muhammad responded to it. So Dr. Lincoln said he must have had that Islamic gene. And then when you go way back to Frederick Douglass, he made comments about Islam. If you study his literature or read his books, I've read his narratives he wrote himself, and also other literatures. And when he was over in Egypt, you know, and in some books, he commented about one of the statues looking like his mother. And he said how Islam was a religion of equality. And see, I heard the Imam Mohammed say that was one of the main things that attracted him about our message when his father said, freedom, justice, and equality. He loved that. Freedom, justice, and equality. Islam. So that's the kind of ideals that Al-Islam advocates, freedom, justice, and equality. So these men, as Dr. Eric C. Lincoln says, they had an Islamic gene in them. They started organizations and movements. And then not only that, even before them, you go back and you have certain slaves. They found that many of the slaves were literate in Arabic and Quranic literature. And they found evidence of this, and they have it documented, of them writing in Arabic. And scholars, people have found this here and know it's a fact. Many of us were Muslims before we came here. There was not all of us, but many of us were. So this was transferring Islam from the east to the west when we were brought over here in those tormented bodies. And as time went on, through our leaders, such as Drew Ali, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was most successful than all of them, Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was more successful than all of them. So I appreciate the comments of Dr. Eric C. Lincoln. And I remember our beloved Imam, we was at a Savior's Day or meeting. And it was an Operation Push, which is headed by the Reverend Jesse Jackson. And we had a meeting there one particular Sunday, and it was just us invited to the meeting at that particular event. And the Imam made comments about that lecture, and he said it should be looked at as though the way you look at the Ten Commandments, the insight that he was giving up that day. And he made a comment about Lauren Bennett in his book Before the Mayflower. And the truth of the matter is, the Imam said, after he looked through that big, thick book, and he said, it seemed like this author did everything he could to avoid mentioning Al-Islam, the importance of Islam in Africa. He's overlooked that. So you have to look at these things and examine these things. You understand? Because, see, a lot of people's minds is swayed. You know what I mean? That all comes, as we know, from identity crisis. You know, we have very deep-rooted problems, psychological problems. And I myself have studied sociology. You know, I went to Roosevelt University. They gave me a degree in that. I know about social problems. I know about unique social problems that African American people had. And I went to school in my 40s. I finished in my 40s. See, but all praise be to Allah, I was already conditioned and taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his beloved son, that seventh child, Imam Muhammad. So that prepared me. And, you know, but anyways, going back to how some people try to avoid speaking on Islam. See, Allah guides whom he pleases, and he leaves in error whom he pleases. Allah also says in the Quran, let there be no compulsion in religion. We can't force our way of life on anybody. See, Allah guides whom he please. He opens the heart of whom he please to this religion. So consider it a blessing if Allah has opened your heart up to the Deen, to this way of life. And we're obligated to share the religion, to teach it, to preach it when we get an opportunity, and try to live it and practice it in our lives. We have to practice what we preach. We have to be examples. And this is what Prophet Mohammed said. And also, our Imam has said, grow up like the palm tree before you start teaching Islam. He said, grow up like the palm tree. Get something under your belt. And he said, you ever look at that palm tree, how it overlaps itself? It looks like it's hugging itself because it's got secrets in there. This is Imam's language. You understand? Grow up like the palm tree before you start teaching. Because if you don't know what you're talking about, you haven't studied this book, learn something first before you jump out there and start teaching. You know, and I'm so thankful still am a student of Imam Deen Mohammed. The Imam, he made special efforts to teach us. And I'm gonna give you some words from him. This whole book is full of W.D. Muhammad. This is all his language from him directly. He said this, he taught us about our Imam's class that we had. He said, Imam's class is more important than anything in this community. And its purpose is to build leadership, culture, religion, preparing your minds and hearts for leadership. That's what the Imam said to us. That's what he said about his class. And he left us a great body of knowledge. A body of knowledge, Islamic knowledge, enlightenment. And when you look at everything that he leaves, he told us, always don't underestimate yourself. He said, I suggest to you, he said, first, Quran, second, the life of Prophet Muhammad, and third, my tafsir. He said, those three go. You can read other things you want to, but those three. This is what he told his students. He said, the Quran, the life of Prophet Muhammad, and his tafsir, a commentary. You know, I don't know if some of you know it, but the Imam was also a member of the Supreme Council in Mecca. He sat on the Supreme Council. And you know, he went on Hajj 10 years before we went there in 77. In 67 on Hajj, he was invited to the tent of Maududi, Maulana Maududi, great scholar in Islam. In fact, they had referred to him as being the Mujaddid. This man passed in 79. He's one of them. And when he heard that the son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was there on Hajj, Maududi invited Imam Muhammad to his tent. And he told all of them there, asked the Imam to give us his impressions of Hajj. And the Imam made a comment, something like kissing the baby. And he said, you should be the leader for the Muslims in America. You understand? And Maududi also told them, this is in 1967, he said, don't try to interfere with the way that community is evolving. They're in the West. Leave them alone. And I've heard Imam Muhammad say different times, he said, you notice, they try to make comments about what he teach. He said they didn't do that with Ahmad Didat. He said, when it comes to me, and the Imam, he didn't just teach us no baby stuff. I mean, I remember 30 years, 40 years, he was talking about Maududi. He was talking about, what's his name, Ghazali, El-Ghazali, years ago. And these different levels of understanding. And, He said, what's very important for us to do is to think independently. Once you know yourself and get grounded in this religion, get grounded in faith. And this is what the Imam was trying to strengthen us in our faith. Understanding the science of the religion. And in his words, the science of the Quran. And knowing about the potential within you. It say there's 7 within you too. It say Prophet Muhammad was taking 7. He said, but you got to understand your 7, the 7 within you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said he will grow you and evolve you from stage to stage. Not only just your 5 senses, but he'll take you to intuition. The intuitive nature. Perceive things, to pick up on things. And Allah bless us with that. You know, it's so beautiful to be a witness to Al-Islam's great truth that has reached us, and how it started here in the West, and how when you look at when Imam Deen Mohammed inherited the religion, when he inherited the religion of Al-Islam, or when he inherited the leadership from his father, he brought us right into the sunnah, or the mainstream Islam. And I reflect on my traveling with him to Mecca. When I went over there 37 years ago, we were well received with respect. And this is the kind of respect they had for the Imam. I recall being on Arafat in a tent with scholars, or they ulama, they hired the most learned ones among them, saying that, talking to us, you are the grandchildren of Bilal. He said, they say Prophet Muhammad said that any member of Bilal's family is a member of the Prophet's family. This is one of their leading scholars. And he said, you are the grandchildren of Bilal, therefore you are members of the Prophet's family. This was right in our presence. See, when we went there with the Imam was so well respected at that point in time. This utter respect for him, all of the learned ones. And they said the Imam Mohammed should be the Khalifa of North America. You know, I heard this in my own ear. I witnessed this here. And, you know, that's why when I reflect on Bilal, we should call ourselves Bilalian. You know, I still might call myself Bilalian. Yes. But Bilal was the first mu'adhin, calling the prayer. And Dr. Muhammad Rauf, he wrote a book. He was over the Islamic Masjid in Washington, D.C. And he wrote a book called Bilal. And he had the assistance of some people from our community when that book came out. And in his book, he said that Bilal was perhaps one of the first 7 followers of Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, one of the first 7. And I've heard another scholar say that there were 3 parts of Al-Islam: Allah, His Messenger, and Bilal ibn Rabah. And when we look at his work during his life and his firmness and perseverance under pressure, you know, he stood tall. And when he couldn't even speak, he put his one finger up. He said, Ahad, Ahad, one God. Those of you that have known the history of Bilal. And I also heard the Imam say at one point that actually it was an Egyptian, but said, y'all should be called Bilalians, years ago. Years ago. I heard this. And then the Imam Mohammed, he goes on to tell us that actually you are Bilal. You should write on Bilal because you are Bilal. And Bilal was a very sentimental type. He cried much. That's that natural human sentiment in his heart because he had sensitivities. You know, Bilal ibn Rabah, may Allah be pleased with him. This is what we got in us. Why? Because of what we went through our sojourn here in America and how we came into al-Islam. And this, as the Prophet said, repeated how he said, just as Islam rose in the east, it was going one really rise in the west. When Imam Muhammad inherited that leadership of his father, he brought maybe 2 million people that were still into shirk, into the oneness of God. The scholars or the learned people and the honest ones, they had to acknowledge this here, that Allah had blessed him. And I talked to several people about that because I was very interested in that. And we had a scholar in Northbrook, Illinois, that he was had studied Al-Azhar, great reciter, Qari of Quran. And he used to visit with us. In fact, he invited us, our community, to his mosque out in Northbrook. And we went out there, brand new place. We went out there and dined with them, everything. They was treating Bilal right, too. And we was thankful, you know. And, you know, I just reflect on him. And when we had a brother, me and Imam Elam was talking about earlier, his name was Muhammad Noor. He came here from Sudan. And the Imam made him Imam over Masjid al-Elijah Muhammad. And we used to sit together, study the Deen. You know, he was in the masjid there. And I had the opportunity to introduce him to the people of Chicago. Because we had a dawah place that we had an outlet at the YMCA downtown. We could go in there once a week and teach. And we had him at the Y there in the big auditorium, and we introduced him to the Islamic community. And the brother I was just speaking about, Imam Kamal Y. Advich, the Islamic scholar, he was there with us, and he was a great reciter of Quran. And that's when we first introduced Imam Muhammad Noor to the community here in Chicago. And he's in St. Louis now somewhere. But we had a lot of them that came here. And another thing about the Imam, he gave these brothers a chance. He gave them opportunity, and he always was open with them. But we always knew, the ones that was his students, we knew, we was clear on what the Imam had taught us. Even when I went to Mecca, brother, Allah's my witness, I don't think I didn't go there with no identity crisis. And I think what contributed to that was being under the arm of Elijah Muhammad and Imam Muhammad. Because, brother, we knew he was the one, Imam Muhammad. We knew that he was the boss with the hot sauce. And that's real. And he was not arrogant. You know, I've heard the Imam say that Allah had blessed him to understand the entirety of this book, from Al-Fatiha to Al-Nas. And gave him the ta'wil too, even a deeper insight. And he could explain it with clarity. Example, just to show you how Allah blessed the Imam. You know, in the Quran it tells you there's 7 gates to heaven and 7 gates to hell. Amen. So I'm gonna give you some insight on that. He said, your mouth, 1, the holes in your nose, 2, your 2 eyes, and your 2 ears. That's W.D. Muhammad. That's from him. So them are the 7 gates. And if them angels ain't guarding them gates, you know, you can get caught up. he taught us that, he said, an imam will teach you to understand your angels. And then he said, two are assigned to each one of you. Ain't that what it tell you in the Quran, that Allah has assigned two to each of you? You know what? Mujaddid. I'm going to use this title now. Mujaddid. A lot of people. The reviver. Imam Deen Mohammed. He said, the two angels, your conscious and your subconscious mind. One directs and the other records. He said, you know, you can, something can have occurred in your life 30 years ago. And it's in your subconscious. But Allah can bring it right back to you and you know, oh man, that was an ugly thing. That's the recording angel. It's saying them centennials, they write down what you do. Conscious and subconscious. I know you probably haven't heard nothing like that before. That comes from Imam Deen Mohammed. So that's just an example. And again, I was saying about those 7 gates to heaven and 7 gates to hell. Your mouth, your 2 holes in your nose, your eyes, your ears. Give us them 7 gates. And they say if the angels don't be protecting them gates, you can get caught up. Yeah. You see? But see, he taught us all these things. He said, I'm going to teach you how to understand your angels. And he told us, he said, Allah, the Most High, has assigned angels to this community. And what is mujaddid? It means one who renews. And the Imam said, it don't mean like something new. It means he'll give the freshness back to it just as it was when it was given to Prophet Muhammad. That newness. It'll be just like when the Prophet gave it. And I've heard the Imam say, doing Jummah, he says as though sometimes the Prophet right there with him. He said when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he created this man Adam, he said, when I breathed into him of my Ra, my spirit bowed down to him. See? And believe me, Imam Deen Mohammed, he was uniquely blessed. Mujaddid of Mujaddids. You know, they talk about Misa el-Mahdi, the 12ers. You know, the Shiites. You know, this great Imam coming back. The Imam done been here. He's here. He's been here. Yeah. So, Misa and Mahdi, Misa means one who anoints your head with all oil, white clean, anointed. And Mahdi means guided by God. Guided by God. You know, there's a green book that came out a long time ago when Imam first came in office. It's called Teachings of Deen Mohammed. There's an interview in there with Herbert Mohammed and the Imam. And he touches on that subject a little bit. You know, about the Mujaddid, the reviver. But the Mujaddid is one that renews, but not new, but he brings out the freshness just as it was given the first time. So you got to know that. Imam Deen Mohammed, you know, I was talking to this one brother, you know, he's an immigrant brother, and he said his work is manifest a modern day miracle when he took so many of us out of the shirk and their black extremism, etc., 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 and took them to one God. 3 in 1. And then I heard him go farther on that. He said, you know, under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to eat 1 meal a day. And during December or whatever, you know, the thing, you know, 1 meal a day. And that was the whole idea that there was to take us out of that Trinitarian doctrine, 3 in 1, to get us to oneness, Tawheed. But see, the Imam, he said his job was to study everything that his father gave us and to clear our heads. Because we was like empty vessels. and get all that black supremacy out of us.